Hello everyone, the current affairs this Tuesday. Thank you for joining the program. Tonight, the debate, the controversy over the divestment of shares in oil search by Kumul Petroleum Holdings Limited. That move was executed on the 1st of this month, all of the 9.8% shares. Kumul Petroleum Holdings chairman, Sir Moyave, attributed the decision as commercial. The initial decision to purchase the shares in the first instance, some 3 years ago, from a UBS loan, forced battlegrounds among politicians in both government and the opposition. On the divestment, the same arguments continue. This time, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill maintained it was a right decision at that time. It maintained confidence in the oil and gas sectors, but now undermined by unforeseen global factors. Opposition leader Patrick Pruach says the country stands to lose 1.5 billion kina. Former Prime Minister and Moresby Northwest MP Sir Makere Marauta took out a paid statement outlining losses to the state. It's an issue that is set to create some heated debate in Parliament this week. So tonight, we devote this segment of PNG Tonight to Wapu Sonk, the Managing Director of the Kumul Petroleum Holdings Limited. Thank you, Wapu Sonk, for coming on to the program.
Thank you, John, for having me.
Okay, all right. The issue here, I guess, is the divestment of the Kumul Petroleum Holdings shares in oil search. That's the issue. We'll get into that later in the program. I think we've got about half an hour to do that. Let's talk about Kumul Petroleum Holdings. I think many people out there hear people talk about it, and I'd like to think that few people understand its operations, how it came into existence, its purpose, and what it's doing now. So would you, for the benefit of my viewers, just go through the history of Kumul Petroleum Holdings?
Thank you, John. Kumul Petroleum Holdings Limited now is a 100% owned company by the government of Papua New Guinea or the state of Papua New Guinea for the people of Papua New Guinea. Our interest mainly is in the PNG LNG project. We have 16.6% interest in that project, but prior to that, PNG government went through a lot of changes. Remember, we had oil production in 1991. Since then, we had companies looked after by MRDC. We had a company called Origin Minerals created. We had mineral and oil and gas assets sitting inside that entity. It got merged into oil sets. Yes. And that's how we started to have the shares. PNG government started to having shares since 2002, when government back then, I think was Sam Makere's government, merged the shares, merged it with oil sets. So we started having shares there. And after that, we had Ada Oil, which was sitting under MRDC, got moved, and we created a company called now Petromin, that had, again, minerals and oil and gas assets inside the same company. So there was this lack of policy in having a national oil and gas company. We started companies because the Oil and Gas Act says, government of Papua New Guinea and the people of Papua New Guinea will have 20.5% stake in every project development, and also on the mineral side is 30%. So we have this provision in Act to own equity in projects, but we didn't have a long-term vision and focus entities. So start of 2012 and 13, we started to think about the Kumul consolidation idea, where oil and gas assets would go into one entity, minerals assets would go into one entity, and all the traditional SOEs would stay under IPBC, but it was renamed as Kumul Consolidated. Oil and gas assets in Petromin, some that were in Treasury, and IPBC had Croton. all went into Kumul Petroleum. It was, National Petroleum Company of Papua New Guinea, NPCP. It got renamed to Kumul. So that's how it
That's the name today.
That's the name today.
And of course, all this had to come together through some sort of an act as well.
Yes, so the Kumul Consolidation Agenda provided for the act to come to being. So Kumul Petroleum Holdings Act and Kumul Minerals Act and Kumul Consolidation Act, IPBC Act existed then, but amendments were made. So in 2015, all those acts came into force. So leading up to that, all the consolidation agenda was going on. That's partly how the migration of the oil shares came into Kumul Petroleum.
All right, okay. And then going forward, I guess you are mandated to look after the nation's oil and gas, as an oil and gas company, to look after all these assets for the country.
Yes, our mandate in the Act is for all upstream development, midstream, which is pipeline, refineries, things like that, and downstream processing as well. So our mandate goes from the upstream to the midstream to downstream, so all spectrum of the business, we can get involved.
All right. Where are you right now? Upstream, middle stream?
We are focused more on upstream.
Yes.
I think that's where the big game is. So 75% of our efforts is really on upstream. We are slowly going into other downstream work and midstream work. We've announced the Western Pipeline concept, this work that we're doing. We're also talking about maybe Kikori being a hub as a study that we're doing. And also we are going into the power generation together with Allsets here in Port Moresby.
That's midstream, downstream.
So that's the downstream business.
Yes. But that's where the people, the country benefits the most, doesn't it? The middle and the downstream.
Yes.
Okay, all right. This then puts us into what's happened to Kumul Petroleum's shares in Oil Search. Okay, a decision was made. There are political, not so much fallouts, but I guess the lines are drawn between government and opposition, if you will. Okay, let the politics say that. You're not a politician, and I don't expect you to argue their case, but the man with the finger pulse moving with the company. What is the situation on the ground here? How did we offload those, and how did it come about?
Yeah, so in 2014, March 2014, the IPIC shares that we used to have, remember I talked about the merger of Origin Minerals and Allsets, that we had conversion of our interest in the company into shares in Allsets. Those shares were mortgaged through the IPIC deal in 2008, 2009, around that time, to finance our share of the project development in the PNG LNG project. So we got the money from the IPIC, Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund, and invested in PNG LNG project. So the exchangeable bond was maturing in March of 2014. And when it was maturing, the government at the time wanted to get the shares back. So they were negotiating. I think I understood that the shares fell apart, the negotiations fell apart. So we lost the shares. IP came back saying, no, these shares are valuable to us, we will keep the shares. So the other proposal came to government, which was the UBS, what is now known as the UBS loan. That UBS loan came in two forms. One was a collar, and the other piece was a bridge loan.
Okay. Collar was some 990 million.
Yeah, the collar.
And the bridge was 300 and something.
Yeah, the collar was $904 million worth of shares sitting inside that collar, and the bridge loan was $335 million.
Okay.
Dollars.
All right.
Australian dollars.
Yeah.
So total is 1.239 or something like that.
That's a total billion from UBS.
Yes, the money was not put up by the government of Papua New Guinea.
No.
It was actually UBS that said, you have interest in all such shares. The company is willing to offload for strategic reasons this parcel of shares. If you want to have it, we will put up the money in two forms. One is as a collar, and the other one is as a bridge.
Okay.
So they put up the money up front. Government didn't have money at the time,
Okay.
so couldn't put any money down.
So how were we servicing it? I mean, tell me about the collar arrangement and the bridge. These are terminologies you are used to. The ordinary Papua New Guineans, I mean, collar. If I say collar, nobody would understand that.
Yeah,
explain that a little bit.
Collar is an option, or is a financing option that bankers use. All the investment bankers have those as a product. So the collar that we got had a call and a put. Put is the low end of the price of the share, and the call is the high end of the price of the shares that both parties would agree to. And then there's a middle ground, which is sort of a strike value. So in this case, we had $7.38 per share would be the strike value, and the banks had the call, which is we own the risk, which means we will pay them if the price is up above the $7.38. Okay. And the banks would pay us if the price is trading below that $7.38. So it works the opposite. There's a lot of people that came into the media that I watched that said, well, the government of Papua New Guinea went in at $8.20, we sold at $6.70, so they get the difference, multiplied by 149 million shares.
And that's the loss.
And that's the loss. It's completely wrong.
Okay.
It's not, that's not how it works. Yeah, so there's more mathematical calculation that goes into behind the scenes that mitigates the risk, because it's a hedging product that's been given to us by the bank.
Okay. So in layman's terms, this collar arrangement is a protective net, protecting your interest in there.
It's a protection mechanism used by the bank. So they said, look, we protect you. You say some of the risk, we will say some of the risk, and we will hedge, some of the shares. That's why when we traded, we had to wait for the share price to come down below the $7.38. It was trading at $6.70, so that's when we said, we traded at the right time by saying that, we were in the money by being below that $7.38. So that's when we traded. And the trading amount of shares was only 31 point something million shares. So people would be asking, what happened to all the shares? Yeah. Well, because of the hedge, it's a hedging product. UBS put up the money at the first place, so they had been selling.
Yes.
So what was left was sold in a matter of hours when we said we want to get out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the end, we didn't lose anything, we didn't gain anything. What is the position here?
Now because we have been prepaying interest over time, we've lost. But in this particular case, we came ahead by recovering about 35 million Australian dollars, because the maturity date was February 2018, and also we traded when the share price was trading below $7.38. So put that all together, we got back 35.5 million Australian dollars. Okay. But previous years, we had been paying interest, so we've basically put that in the balance sheet for Kumul in 2015, 2016. So we've absorbed all that over time.
Okay. That's coming from you as Wapu Sonk, the managing director. But from the politicians, I mean, even today's newspapers had the opposition leader Patrick Proat saying, we lost 1.5 million, and so Makere takes other advertisements saying we lost a billion, and so Makere says we lost something like that, over $1 billion. What is the message that we need to get out to the people here? What is the message that will come to you from those kind of figures that are being thrown out?
Like I said,
I mean, I don't expect you to speak politics here.
Yeah. I don't think government, the simple fact is that government never put up any money.
Okay.
We never had billion plus in 2014.
Then that's the operative line. Government never put any money in there.
Yeah, it was just a promise that, hey, when we have money, we will pay you down the line. So let's agree on this protective mechanism. We'll wrap it around. You say some of the risk, we say some of the risk. We'll pay you an interest for sharing the risk. So we've been paying interest. So we basically stepped in last week and said, look, we don't want to keep doing this. We got other investments in Papua LNG coming up and other big projects that we are looking forward to getting into, so we will get out. So that's basically what we've done by unwinding the collar.
Okay.
So we never sold the shares. We never owned it at the first place.
No.
Yeah, so we just basically said, no, this arrangement that we have, we are unwinding.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
there was no physical change of shares because we didn't put any money in.
Okay. So where is these figures coming from? The 1.5 billion and the over a billion that Mr. Pruach and Samakeri are coming up with?
I think it's the total amount. You know, like I said, the bridge amount of 335 million and the collar amount of 900. So total is 1.23 something billion.
Okay.
That's the number that's going around.
Okay.
But that's the number that we would have paid at that time if we had money.
All right. But we never paid them?
We never paid it.
Okay. So it's being communicated to the people wrongly, is it?
Well, I think there's lack of understanding about the whole arrangement. So I wouldn't say it's... I'm not sure whether it's deliberate or not, but that's not for me to comment.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right. I would say going forward, now that you've divested with oil search, what is the direction here now going forward?
Well, what we're trying to do is now prepare ourselves for Papua LNG, which is the next biggest project, hopefully with our partners, Total and Exxon. And all sorts will all work together to develop the next phase of project. And we are also doing power projects. You know, we're doing some studies on how we can develop stranded, oil and gas fields. So that's our main focus and that's our mandate. So that's basically what we will continue to work in.
You're looking at Kumul LNG as well?
Yes, Kumul LNG is part of the discussion that we are having earlier on, where the Western Province has a lot of stranded gas fields, and there's a possibility that we can have floating LNG in the Gulf, so bring the gas from Western Province. There's gas fields in Southern Highlands and Gulf, onshore, offshore, in that region that can be brought into production. So this is the next tier down, ExxonMobil, Total talking about a big project. This is the next tier down where we can, prefabricate floating LNG and bring it into shore and see if we can develop stranded gas fields, or what would be stranded gas fields, at smaller cost.
Okay, that next year you say? Is that?
It's the next year development, yes.
Okay. Oh, all right. Next year development project. Okay. And that is the bracket up there, the middle phase, and the downstreaming down there. So that is where you're getting into.
That's where we are getting into, looking at the technology that's available. So, currently the LNG plant, one train is about 4 million ton per annum production, right? What we're looking at is 1.5, 0.5, 0.75 million ton per annum, that kind of range in production, but offshore.
Okay.
All the LNG, gas and oil separation, everything all built onto the same ship.
Okay. So I can now say that Papua New Guinea has PNG LNG, the Papua LNG, and the Kumul LNG. 3 LNGs?
We'll probably stage it. Like I said, we focused pretty much on our main big project. This one is also, interesting, and we will bring partners in to work with them.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. You're looking at power as well for Port Moresby, other downstream processing, if you will, things that will benefit Papua New Guineans most from Kumul Petroleum.
Yes, we've done some studies, and we see there's about 13% of our people have access to electricity. So we looked at how we can actually connect more people if we can, apart from concentrating on oil and gas business, where we dedicate 75% of our efforts in. Can we do other things? So the next thing that comes right next to developing this big oil and gas project is power generation. So we can help with meeting the vision 2030 and 2050 of government by electrifying 70% of our population.
Yes, yes. Is that only in Port Moresby and CD, or the provinces that are part of the LNG project?
Yeah, we will be looking at other places as well, but we want to take one step at a time. The easiest place to start is Port Moresby, and then some of these floating LNG. There's also floating receiving terminals that you can bring in. So those technologies can be applied in Lae and Medang, even Lihir, other places where you have ports.
Oh, it's just a matter of interest. The Port Moresby power, is that a follow-on from what was done during the Pacific Games when we had the improve power in Port Moresby a little bit?
Yeah, it's a follow-on. Basically, what we are getting is 25 megawatts from ExxonMobil, their own power plant inside. So this one is going to be a separate power plant built outside. We get gas coming outside of the plant and into the gas, into this power plant. We will use that gas to generate power, 57.8 megawatts.
Okay, okay. All right, we are pushing for time here, Mr. Sonk. Any other new developments that you would like to break on my program? Tell Papua New Guineans.
I guess the work that we're doing around the floating LNG and the next tier down development and the concept around commercializing our stranded oil fields, gas fields, is very exciting for us. There's a lot of small to mid-sized companies that do exploration, but we're trying to keep them interested and keep exploring by giving them some direction or some route to market options. At the moment, we only have one pipeline that brings gas from the highlands into Port Moresby, but if we can talk up the concept of building a strategic pipeline, so all these stranded fuels can be commercialized. That's exciting area that
the potential in the future in that area is positive.
Yes,
positive.
It really sustains the industry going forward if we did have such a thing.
Wapu Sonk, Managing Director of Kumul Petroleum Holdings Limited. Thank you for coming on to the program.
Thank you.
All right. That's the program, the Tuesday edition of PNG Tonight, the current affairs of NBC Television. Thank you for watching. We'll have for you another edition at the same time tomorrow night. Good night.